We've all heard about today about how rapidly the world is changing and how business needs to change with it. And in turn, so do the people who work within businesses. And yet we seem to be facing endless numbers of status quo statements and policies that just don't tie back. So today what I'd like to do is challenge 5 of those status quos. The first is that 65 is old and is only good for gardening, golf, and gallivanting. And as we'll no doubt hear from Graham Codrington later, the average lifespan is increasing all the time. Nobody can afford to stop working at 65 and live for another 30 years. And besides which, they're just simply not ready to do so. And yet we still have antiquated policies in place which force retirement at 65. And because this simply doesn't work for the individuals, nor for the businesses who can't afford to lose the skill, we've come up with ever increasingly complicated ways of cheating our own systems. Contracts and outsourcing and all kinds of funny things, instead of just going to the heart of the problem and changing the policy. The second is that a university degree is essential, and perhaps has been part of the driving force towards fees must fall. But is it really? How many of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world today haven't got much education? And what's really exciting for me is seeing that some of the world's leading businesses like PwC and Ernst & Young have got on to the fact that a degree doesn't equate to success in the workplace. And they've in fact removed that as an entry criteria, rather focusing on individual assessments that tie back to what they need for the job at hand. The third is that it's just simply too risky to employ someone with potential. A scary statistic from LinkedIn's 2015 survey is that 66% of all people who moved jobs last year did a lateral move, which means they simply picked up their stuff, moved to another desk, and carried on doing what they'd been doing probably for the last 10 years. Now that is terrible in terms of people development and soul-destroying as an individual. And is it any wonder then that the fundamental differentiator between whether I take that job or not is all about money? We need to think differently, especially as 80% of Generation Xers no longer work in the field for which they qualified. I, in fact, was a sports journalist. I've done many things since then, and perhaps arguably why I became a recruiter, because I think most people who look at my CV wouldn't know what on earth to do with me, and yet I think I'm pretty capable at pretty much most things. The fourth is that happy employees don't leave. And yes, of course, if you keep your employees happy and happier for longer, they may stay longer. But what's interesting again from LinkedIn is that 48% of all active job seekers rated their current employment situation as extremely satisfying. And yet they're still in the market. What is more frightening for me is that just 9% of employees in this country are actively engaged in the workplace. And this is according to the latest Gallup Employment Engagement Survey. 9% mean they get up and go to work loving what they do and doing a good job. More frightening is that 45%, the highest in the world, are actively disengaged, which means they go to work with the intention of doing as little as possible and abusing the company's resources. When you couple that with a surprising statistic for me, because my experience in recruitment is that people are job hopping, is that the average job tenure at the end of 2014 in this country was 47 months, which is 4 years. And you can guess who's left behind. The actively disengaged ones that no one else wants. So you need to think as a business is, how are you engaging your people? Fulfilling their potential and helping them to be the best they can be, which in turn makes them more productive, happier employees. If I can't see you, you're not working. Haven't we all heard that? Isn't it about time that management training and styles of people management change to say virtual working, results-only work environments are the way of the future, but the way we performance manage people has to change as well. And finally, that job security is only measured by permanent employment. In fact, South Africa is one of the few countries who still talks about permanent employment. For the rest of the world, it's an open-ended contract, which, by the way, it really is, isn't it? We need to start thinking differently. And what I'd really like to do is help shed light for you and your teams on how to be better employees, better employers, and overall more productive companies. And whether that's a technical talk to your leadership teams or HR teams, or something a bit more inspirational and educational to your people on the ground, let me come in and help you kill the status quo and start working towards more 21st century thinking. Thank you very much.